I told him on our first date, honesty is my non-negotiable. We were sitting in a candlelit bar with gold-rimmed glasses and overpriced cocktails, the kind of place where you pretend to be cooler than you are just to match the lighting. And Theo, yes, another Theo, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Same here, I've had enough of secrets." I smiled. I nodded. And I tucked my left hand deeper into the sleeve of my cardigan, making sure the edge of the ring didn't catch the light. It was instinct at first, just a flicker of guilt dressed as discretion. He didn't ask if I was single because we were on a date, because obviously I was, because I had said yes. But I was. Not fully. Not really. I was engaged, technically. To Liam. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 1, and in therapy for about half of that. And by the time Theo came into the picture, Liam and I were sleeping in separate rooms, barely speaking, just existing. Like houseplants someone forgot to water but also didn't throw away. We hadn't called it off. We hadn't finalized anything. We were just figuring it out. And in the meantime, I was taking off my engagement ring before dates with another man. I told myself it wasn't cheating, it was coping. That it wasn't betrayal, it was exploration. Theo was different. Funny, patient, intuitive in a way that made you feel safe before you knew why. He didn't interrupt. He didn't push. And when I said things like, "I've been through a lot," he didn't demand details. He just nodded like he understood anyway. By our second date, he brought me coffee and remembered my exact oat milk cinnamon ratio. By our third, he knew I hated small spoons and loved thunderstorms. By the fourth, I panicked. Because I realized I wasn't killing time. I wasn't curious. I was venting the pressure valve of my current relationship. I was falling for someone else while still carrying a ring box in my purse. And the worst part was that I kept doubling down on the lie that defined our dynamic. "I just want things to be honest this time," I told him one night, wrapped up in his hoodie on his couch. "No games," he said, touching my knee gently. "No pretending," I added, heart pounding. "No lies," he promised. And I said, "Yes, please, no lies," while my ring sat in the zipper pouch of my tote bag, 10 feet away. It got worse before it got better. Every time we got closer, I told a deeper version of the same lie. I wasn't technically married. I wasn't technically cheating. I wasn't even sure I was still wanted by Liam. But I hadn't told him it was over either. I hadn't moved out. I hadn't taken the ring off for good, only for Theo. And that made it worse. Because I wasn't just lying to Theo. I was lying to both of them. And to myself most of all. Theo once told me he used to date someone who lied constantly, little things, stupid things. She'd say she was home when she was. She'd say she liked his friends and then trash them behind his back. "It's not even the big betrayals that hurt," he said. "It's the erosion, the feeling that you're building something on sand." I nodded. I reached for his hand. And I wore my guilt like perfume, something invisible but unmistakable to anyone paying close enough attention. But he didn't know, not yet. So I kept showing up. To his door. To his heart. To the story I was writing like I wasn't already committed to another one. I kept saying things like, "This feels real," and "I've never had this kind of connection before," and "I think I'm finally waking up." But I didn't say the one thing that would make all of that honest. That I was still someone else's fiancé. And that I hadn't told him he wasn't anymore. It all unraveled on a Tuesday. But I'll get to that. First, I have to tell you about the night he almost saw the ring. It was a Sunday night. We'd just come back from a small concert at a dive bar Theo liked, a local jazz trio that played moody, slow-burn renditions of Radiohead songs. I was tipsy from the way he looked at me under the low amber lights, the way his hand found the small of my back without ever feeling possessive. We got back to his place, and I kicked off my boots, pulled my hair into a lazy bun, and curled up on the couch with a blanket he always kept for me now. "You feel like home," he said softly, almost to himself. My heart twisted. I smiled and kissed his cheek, and then excused myself to the bathroom, because I needed to check something. My tote bag was hanging by the door, the zipper slightly open from earlier. I'd stashed the ring before we left, as always. But I had this horrible image flash through my mind. What if it had slipped out? What if, while I was grabbing a lip balm or a tissue or some breath mints, it had fallen? I locked the door and pulled the bag into my lap, unzipping the pouch and reaching in. There it was, still nestled in the silk pouch I kept it in, cool to the touch, familiar. I should have left it at home. I should have thrown it in a drawer, put it in a box, done anything except carry it with me like a souvenir from a version of myself I hadn't yet had the courage to let die. I stared at it for a long moment, not at the diamond, at the engraving. L+E always. Liam and Eva. I closed my fist around it, shoved it back in, zipped the bag, and forced a smile into the mirror. When I walked out, Theo was in the kitchen pouring us tea. Cinnamon chamomile, my favorite. "You good?" he asked, voice low, warm. "Yeah," I said. "Sorry, just needed a moment." He leaned in and kissed my forehead. "You never have to apologize for needing space." I flinched. Not visibly, but inside, because he meant it. And I was abusing that space, filling it with secrets he hadn't earned and didn't deserve. We sipped tea. We curled into each other. He told me about a childhood story, how he once got stuck inside a department store clothes rack and cried until the clerk lured him out with a lollipop. I laughed too hard. He stared at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. And I hated myself. That week, Liam texted, "Therapist wants to know if we're showing up Thursday." I stared at the message. It was our couples therapy, still scheduled, still recurring, still default. I typed, "I can't, I have plans." He replied, "Dinner with the guy you pretend doesn't exist." I froze. I never told him about Theo. I never mentioned anyone. And yet, I texted, "That's not fair." He sent a thumbs up. No words, just a single emoji full of quiet resentment. The next day, I canceled therapy. I told myself it was a step, that I was slowly closing one door before opening another, that it wasn't cowardice, it was control. But I wasn't in control. I was juggling two lives and pretending one was a figment of the past, when it was still knocking on my door every Tuesday with passive-aggressive texts and leftover groceries I hadn't asked for. Liam wasn't gone, not emotionally, not logistically, and not in the way that mattered most, legally. We were still engaged. The wedding was on pause, not called off. And I was telling Theo I loved how safe he made me feel. I was sleeping at Theo's place most nights. But I was still getting packages addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Evans at mine. I hadn't taken the ring out in front of Liam in weeks. He hadn't asked. We were ghosts haunting the same lease. And I was the one holding the seance. Theo noticed something that Friday. We were at a bookstore. I reached for a hardcover copy of The Secret History and the sleeve of my cardigan pulled back, just enough for the tan line to show. He didn't say anything then. But later that night, as we were walking back to his car, he slipped his fingers through mine and asked, gently, "Do you wear rings?" I froze. "Sometimes," I said, voice too high, too quick. He nodded. "You just have a mark, like one used to be there." I fumbled. "Yeah, I mean, I used to like costume jewelry, but it got annoying." "Got it." He didn't push. And that almost broke me more. Because I could feel the crack forming between us, the one you try to ignore, but it spreads every time you lie again. That night, as I lay beside him, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what it would feel like to tell the truth. To rip off the bandage. To say, "I've been lying to you from the beginning." And to pray, desperately, that he'd still want to know me after. But I didn't. I kissed his shoulder. I turned off the lamp. And I slept in his arms while my ring sat 3 miles away, tucked under a pair of socks, still waiting to be returned. The night it all started to slide out of my control was the night Theo told me he was falling in love with me. We weren't doing anything dramatic, just sitting on his couch, barefoot, watching old episodes of Chef's Table. He had one arm slung behind me, his other hand lazily drawing shapes on my knee. I remember the smell of popcorn and lavender candle wax. It was one of those nights where everything felt too safe, too warm, too good to be sustainable. And then he said it. "I think I'm falling in love with you." Not loudly, not theatrically. like he was just sharing the weather or something equally obvious. I felt the breath catch in my throat. I kissed him before I could answer. It was a reflex, a deflection dressed up as intimacy. I kept my mouth pressed to his until the panic passed, until I could find words that sounded like love without being a promise. "You make me feel seen," I whispered, "like I can finally breathe." He smiled. He looked so proud, so open. And I died a little because the truth was, someone else still had a key to my apartment. Someone else's name was still on my emergency contact form. Someone else still thought he had time. And now Theo was falling for a version of me that didn't exist. The following weekend, Liam showed up. Unannounced. I came home from Theo's place late Sunday morning, unshowered, hair in a braid, one of Theo's sweatshirts hanging off my shoulder. I walked into our apartment, and there Liam was, sitting on the couch with a takeout coffee and the cat in his lap like nothing had changed. "Hey," he said, "you look cozy." I froze in the doorway. "What are you doing here?" He shrugged, "Just fed her, thought I'd wait for you, figured we could talk." I didn't answer. I just walked past him into the bedroom, our bedroom, and closed the door behind me. The ring was on my dresser. He must have seen it. I hadn't hidden it this time. My heart pounded. I sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out my phone, and stared at Theo's name. I wanted to text him, "He's here. He's still here. I'm sorry I lied." Instead, I typed nothing. I walked back out. "You have to stop coming over like this," I said. He leaned back on the couch. "Your name is still on my lease. You don't live here anymore. Do you live somewhere else?" I blinked. "I mean," he added, casually taking a sip of his coffee, "you're never here anymore. Do you live with him now?" I didn't answer. He laughed, bitter and small. I saw the sweatshirt must be nice, playing two timelines. "I'm not playing anything." "Oh, come on, Eva, you're still engaged to me." "No, I'm not." "Then say it." I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You won't," he said, "because deep down you still think this might work." I swallowed. "You left me emotionally months ago. And yet you kept the ring." That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, my phone glowing on the nightstand like a confession I wasn't ready to make. Theo had texted, "You okay? I miss you." I didn't reply. My brain was spiraling. What if I told him? What if I laid it all out, messy, raw, unforgivable? Would he understand? Would he leave? Would he stay and hate me quietly? And more importantly, would I be able to look at myself after? I'd built this relationship with Theo on words like transparency and emotional integrity, while actively hiding the biggest truth of all. What did that make me? A liar. A coward. Someone who wanted love but didn't deserve it. All of the above. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Liam. "I need you to come over," I said, "and bring a box." "For what?" "I'm giving the ring back." Silence. Then, finally. He came over that afternoon. No drama, no yelling. He handed me the box. I slid the ring inside it and sealed it with shaking hands. "I'm sorry I dragged this out," I said. He nodded. "You didn't drag it out, you just didn't let it end." That hurt more than I expected. He left quietly. And just like that, I was no longer engaged. But I wasn't free yet. Because now I had to tell Theo. And this time there'd be no hiding anything. I didn't do it right away. Even after Liam took the ring, even after the box was gone, even after I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the dent it left in my jewelry tray, I waited. For what, I don't know. The perfect moment, the right words, some kind of cosmic permission slip. Theo texted that evening. "Thinking of you, wanna come over. No pressure, just miss your face." And because I am a coward wrapped in charm, I replied. "Would love to, on my way soon, heart." I didn't deserve the heart. I didn't deserve him. But I showed up anyway. He opened the door like he always did, grinning like I was sunlight. He kissed me like I was the home he was finally building, not realizing I'd been squatting in it on a forged lease. We made dinner together, stir fry. He let me chop the garlic even though I always butcher it. He danced behind me with a wooden spoon in hand while I rolled my eyes and secretly melted. It would have been the perfect night to confess. Instead, I laughed at his jokes. I curled up on his couch. I kissed him like I didn't have a full-blown wrecking ball swinging just inches behind my back. I told myself, tomorrow. But the universe didn't wait for tomorrow. Because the universe has a sick sense of timing. 2 days later, I was at work, headphones in, editing spreadsheets, when a message popped up on my screen. Unknown number, no name, just a single sentence. Does Theo know you were engaged this whole time? My blood turned to ice. I stared at the message, willing it to vanish, to be a mistake, spam, something. But then came the second one. You should be more careful. Not everyone keeps secrets. No signature, no images, just dread. Liam. It had to be. I hadn't blocked him, hadn't unfollowed, hadn't even asked him to keep quiet. I called him. He didn't answer. I texted. Did you send me that message? He replied 3 hours later. What message? And that was confirmation enough. I knew his games. I'd taught him some of them. I spent that whole evening shaking. The wall I'd built between my lies and Theo was now full of cracks. It was just a matter of time before it collapsed completely. The guilt was no longer guilt. It was terror. I wasn't worried about losing him. I was panicked that I wouldn't even get to explain. So I did the thing I should have done weeks ago. I asked Theo to meet me the next night. Can we talk? I texted. He replied instantly. Always my place or yours. Mine, I said. I need the familiarity. He brought wine. I didn't drink any. We sat on my couch. He joked about the cat. I smiled once, then stopped pretending. There's something I haven't told you, I said. He turned to face me, gentle as ever. Okay. And then I broke it. I was engaged when we met. He blinked. I'm not anymore, I added. I gave the ring back. It's over. It should have been over a long time ago, but I was too afraid. I should have told you. I lied, not by words, but by omission, and that's still a lie. He was quiet. Too quiet. I watched his mouth press into a hard line, his shoulders go rigid. For how long? He finally asked. The whole time, I whispered. But I didn't. Liam and I weren't living like a couple. We hadn't been for months. There was no intimacy, no love. We were just roommates with old paperwork. He nodded slowly. But you didn't tell me, he said. No. And you made me promise we'd never lie. I know. He exhaled like someone punched him in the ribs. I thought I was building something real. We were. He stood up. I followed. Please don't go, please. He looked at me with eyes I'll never forget. Not angry, not even sad. Just gone. I would have forgiven the truth, he said, but you gave me a version of you that never existed. Then he walked out. And this time, I didn't chase. Because I knew. The worst kind of lie is the one you let someone build trust on. And I'd built our whole foundation on borrowed time. After Theo left, the silence in my apartment became unbearable. It wasn't just the absence of his voice or the missing warmth of his laugh echoing down the hallway. It was the absence of the person I thought I was becoming. The woman I wanted to be, honest, brave, worthy. She left with him. I tried texting, just once. Please let me explain everything, not to excuse it but to own it. He didn't reply. The read receipt haunted me for days. It sat there like a digital gravestone, seen but not answered. I started spiraling, not in the loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet, self-destructive one. Skipping meals, replaying every moment we had, remembering the softness in his eyes when I told him I felt safe, remembering how his fingers brushed mine like he was memorizing something sacred. I wanted to go back to the night he told me he was falling for me, to freeze that moment, to pause the unraveling before it began. But that's not how time works. A week passed. Then another. Then one morning, I saw him. It was unintentional, a total accident. I was walking out of my favorite bookstore, his favorite too, and there he was across the street with a friend, a woman. He laughed at something she said, tossed his head back, smiled with the same open warmth he used to give me. I stood there frozen. He didn't see me. And maybe that was better. I almost called out. Almost crossed the street. Almost ruined whatever piece he'd rebuilt. But I didn't. I turned and walked in the opposite direction, every step feeling like it peeled skin off my chest. I cried in the car, for 45 minutes, the ugly kind of cry with shaking shoulders and the taste of salt in my mouth. I wasn't crying because he moved on. I was crying because I didn't deserve to be remembered the way I wanted to be. That night, I finally called my sister. She'd known about Liam, she hadn't known about Theo. I told her everything, from the ring to the promises to the unraveling. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just listened. And then she said something I'll never forget. "You lied because you thought the truth would ruin everything. But the truth doesn't ruin things, it reveals what they're really made of." I sat with that, and it gutted me. Because maybe Theo and I really could have been something, if I had given him the whole story. If I had trusted him with the raw, uncomfortable parts instead of trying to curate my pain into something prettier. I wanted him to fall in love with the healed version of me. But all I gave him was the edited version. A few more weeks passed. No messages. No run-ins. Just space. I deleted Liam's number. I archived every photo. I stopped carrying the tote bag where I used to hide the ring. One day, I found the silk pouch buried in a drawer. I took it out, stared at it for a full minute, and then threw it in the trash. Not as a performance, not as punishment. As a choice. Because holding onto, it meant holding onto a lie I'd already lived through. And I was done performing grief I no longer believed in. Then one night, I got a voicemail. From Theo. His voice was quiet, cautious. "Hey, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if I'm ready to see you. But I've been thinking, a lot. And I guess I just wanted to say, I know people lie when they're scared. I know that's not the same as forgiving it, but maybe it's a place to start. I hope you're okay." I didn't breathe the entire time it played. I played it again. And again. I didn't call him back that night. I wasn't ready. Because now, for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to say something just to make it better. I wanted to say something true. I waited 3 days before calling him back. Not because I was playing games. Not because I was punishing him for leaving. But because I needed those 3 days to make sure that if I spoke to him again, it wouldn't be to earn back his affection. It would be to finally tell the truth, without dressing it up in apology or hope. When I finally hit call, I didn't rehearse. He answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said, no anger, no warmth, just open space. "Hi," I said quietly, "I got your message." "Yeah." A pause. "I didn't expect to hear from you," he added. "I wasn't sure you should." Silence again, but this time it didn't feel like ice. It felt like an invitation. I exhaled. "The day we met," I began, "I was already unraveling. I was stuck in something I didn't know how to leave. Liam wasn't just my fiancé, he was my history, my comfort zone, my guilt. We stopped being a couple long before I met you, but I couldn't admit it to myself. And because of that, I couldn't admit it to you." He didn't interrupt. "I told you I wanted honesty because I did. I just couldn't give it yet. And instead of being brave, I let you fall for a version of me that wasn't real. That's the worst thing I've ever done." He was quiet for a while, then, "You sound different." "I am." Another pause, then he said, "You know what hurts the most?" "What?" "That I still want to believe you." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "Then don't believe me, believe who I'm trying to be now." He let out a small, broken laugh. "That's the problem, I do." We met 2 days later at a little cafe neither of us had ever been to. Neutral ground, new territory. I wore no makeup, no jewelry, nothing performative, just jeans, a soft sweater, and the plainest version of myself. He was already there when I arrived, fingers wrapped around a mug, looking out the window like the world was playing a song only he could hear. When he saw me, he stood up. We didn't hug. We just sat. It wasn't awkward, it was cautious. Like two people who had both touched something too hot and now didn't trust themselves not to burn again. "I don't know what this is," he said after we ordered. I don't know if we're starting over or just saying goodbye right. Maybe both, I said. He nodded. We talked for an hour, about nothing and everything. He asked if Liam had moved out. I told him yes. I told him I changed the locks, that I updated my emergency contact, that I'd told my parents the engagement was off, and that I was finally done pretending to be someone's almost wife. He asked if I still thought about him, Theo. Every day, I said. Even now. I looked him in the eye, especially now. When we left the cafe, we didn't make promises. No, let's try again. No, what are we now? Just text me sometime, and yeah, I will. But that night, I did something I hadn't done before. I texted him first. Not with a meme, not with a picture, not with some passive check-in. I wrote, "Thank you for not letting my lie be the last word between us." And he replied, "Let's see what truth sounds like this time." I cried after that. Not from regret. From relief. I didn't need him to take me back. I didn't need us to become anything again. I just needed to stop being the girl who hid her ring under layers of half-truths and romanticized denial. I wanted to become someone who didn't need to be believed, because she finally believed in herself. A few months passed. Not the kind of months that blur together in survival mode. These were intentional. Sharp. Awake. The kind where you start noticing things again, the taste of your coffee, the warmth of your own pillow, the sound of your laughter not being filtered through guilt. I didn't see Theo again for a while, not in person at least. We texted sporadically. Carefully. It wasn't romantic, it was respectful. Two people building a bridge, one honest sentence at a time. He'd send me photos of books he thought I'd like. I'd send him weird little thoughts at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep, like, "Do you think cats understand the concept of shame?" We never pushed it. We never defined it. And that's what made it real. Because this time, there were no lies holding it together. Liam, on the other hand, drifted out of my orbit like a ship finally leaving harbor. He stopped texting, stopped showing up, stopped haunting the corners of my mind. I heard through a mutual friend that he moved across the city and started dating someone new. Good for him. I mean that now. Closure didn't come as a lightning bolt or some huge emotional epiphany. It came in the small, silent realization that I didn't flinch when his name appeared in a group chat, that I didn't scan crowds for his face anymore. He became background noise. And I became the main character in my own life again. One night, I was walking home from work, watching the city lights flicker on one by one, when I passed the little bookstore where Theo and I almost had our first truth. I paused. I walked in. The clerk nodded at me. I wandered, touching the spines of books I hadn't had the bandwidth to read in months. And then I saw it, Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. He once told me that book reminded him of me. "You bleed in essays," he'd said, "but somehow it makes other people feel less alone." I bought it. When I got home, I opened the inside cover and wrote, "To the version of me that finally told the truth, may she never forget how good it feels to be known." Weeks later, Theo texted, "Still think about you when it rains." I replied, "I still think about you when the room gets too quiet." And then, "Dinner next week." He sent back a single word. "Absolutely. I don't know what we are now. Maybe something new. Maybe just two people who once loved, broke, and built something wiser from the wreckage. But here's what I do know. Lies feel safe until they kill the very thing you're trying to protect. And honesty, brutal, uncomfortable, terrifying honesty, is the only thing that will ever hold under the weight of real love. So now, when I start something new, I don't lead with charm or mystery. I say, here I am, all of me, even the messy parts. And if someone stays, that's how I'll know. This time, it's not a lie. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.